Hello, my name is Matthew Ramos. I am going to be reading short stories from the book Bites and Bones. They're a collection of short horror stories, more scary stories than horror. Um, yes, just a collection of short stories. I will be starting with Ghost Dog by Ellen Wittlinger. "That's Hawkins," Travis told Jack, motioning to the elderly man sitting on his front porch. "Old guy's squirrely." Travis raised a finger to his ear and circled it. The two boys walked a little faster, past the only other house on Reservoir Road, besides the one Jack and his mother had moved into the week before. But Hawkins noticed them, and pulled himself out of his rocking chair onto long, unsteady legs. "Hey," he called. "You seen my dog anywhere? She's gone missin'." Jack stopped and looked at the man. His grandma's dog had run away once, and the whole family had been upset until he came back. "What's she look like?" Jack asked. "Let's go," Travis hissed. "Don't talk to Hawkins. You can't believe a word he says." But the old man was staring at Jack now. It wouldn't hurt to find out what the dog looked like. Maybe they'd see it while they were walking around. "Black and white," Hawkins said. "'Bout so high." The flat of his hand measured the dog's height at halfway between his knee and his hip bone. Not a small animal. "She answers to the name Jessie." Travis let out a sharp laugh. "I can't believe you're talking to this nut. Let's go." "I'll let you know if I see her," Jack told the old man. "Thank you, son, thank you." Hawkins sank back down into his chair with a groan which groaned a warning. The rocker didn't seem sturdy enough to hold the man's thin frame. In fact, Jack thought, the whole house looked on the verge of collapse. "Come on!" Travis gave him a little shove to get him moving, and the two of them walked on down the road. Jack wasn't sure what he thought of Travis. The boy was awfully bossy and had to have things his own way all the time. But he did know a lot about the local countryside, and it had been fun exploring the woods with him. Something Jack had never done when he lived in the city. Besides, Travis was the only kid close to his age he'd seen since he'd moved here. At first, Jack had been glad to find him, but the more time they spent together, the more Travis irked him. For instance, did he have to be so mean to an old man who only wanted to find his dog? Back in Chicago, Jack had a friend who lived in the same building he did, and two more friends just down the street. But when they'd moved to Michigan after his dad left, the only place his mom could afford was a house in the middle of nowhere. He hoped when school started he'd meet other kids, but for now, if he wanted somebody to hang out with, it would have to be Travis. "Can't believe you talked to Hawkins," Travis said, shaking his head. "Now he's going to want to talk to you all the time." "He lost his dog. I thought I might be able to help him," Jack said. "Right, lost his dog." Travis shook his head disdainfully. "Do you want to hear about how he lost his dog? He ran over the dog with that old truck of his. That's right, he's never going to find that dog again because Jessie is dead and it's his own fault." "Really?" Jack asked. Travis walked backward in front of Jack, his eyes flashing. "Really, I wouldn't make up something like that." "Wow, that's terrible. I bet that's why he's so crazy now." "He deserves to be crazy. He killed his own dog." "But it was an accident, wasn't it? He didn't do it on purpose." Travis turned away. "What I heard was he was in a big hurry. Wasn't paying attention. Dog was just laying there on the dirt driveway, and Hawkins drove right over her." Jack shook his head. "Man, that's awful." Travis was quiet for a minute, and then he said, "Some people say they've seen Jessie in the woods around Hawkins' old shack. Maybe she comes back to see him." Jack's heart jumped in his chest, and he looked around him as if he might catch sight of the animal. He assured himself he wasn't really afraid, that it was just that Travis was talking in a creepy voice, no doubt trying to scare him. I don't believe in stuff like that," Jack said. "No such thing as ghosts, especially ghost dogs." Travis shrugged. I'm just saying what I heard. They were both quiet until they reached the sidewalk in front of Jack's house. I should go, Travis said. Jack figured Travis would stay if he invited him in, but he'd have enough of the boy for one afternoon. Well, where do you live anyway? Travis pointed through the trees. Over that way, off Dakota Road. There's a shortcut through the woods. Oh, well, I guess I'll see you around. Travis gave him a little wave and headed off through the trees. At dinner that night, Jack's mother was on him again about making friends. She'd met a woman at a new job in the dentist's office who had a daughter his age, and she was plotting to get the two of them together. I'm not in kindergarten, Mom. You can't make playdates for me. Besides, a girl's not going to want to hang out with some guy she doesn't even know. I told her mother what a wonderful kid you are. I'm sure. No, Mom. No, no, no. She sighed. But you need some friends, Jack. I have a friend. I told you. I know. Travis. I'd like to meet him sometime. Sounds like he doesn't have anything better to do than hang around in the woods all day. So, I don't have anything better to do either. Jack knew he sounded angry. His mother grimaced, then stared out the window, her eyes unfocused. Maybe I shouldn't have moved you here. It was selfish of me. I wouldn't want to be closer to my parents after. But I know it wasn't fair to you. You always liked Chicago so much. I'll go back. I'll see my friends when I visit Dad. Jack knew that any mention of his father still had the power to make his mother fall apart. She left the table silently and retreated to her bedroom. Maybe that was what he'd wanted her to do. Leave him alone. Her constant commentary on how lousy his life was these days didn't make him feel any better about it. The next day, after his mother left for work, Jack got on his bike and rode down Reservoir Road. Travis hadn't been around that morning, and Jack decided to go talk to Hawkins for a while. He couldn't get out of his head the story of how the man had accidentally killed his dog, and he felt sorry for the old guy. He wouldn't mind sitting and listening to Hawkins tell stories about Jesse. There was nothing else to do anyway. But before he got as far as Hawkins' cabin, he heard someone calling his name. It had to be Travis. He didn't know anybody else. Where are you? He peered through the trees that lined the road. Over here, Travis said, whispering just loud enough for Jack to hear. Jack let his bike drop and followed the sound of Travis's voice. He found the boy 10 yards into the woods, crouching low to the ground. Travis held a finger to his lips. What's going on? Jack whispered. Travis pointed through the trees. Get down! I see her! She's over there! Jack got on his knees and struggled to see whatever it was Travis saw, but there was nothing there, just trees and more trees. Although when he turned his head, he thought there might be something moving in his peripheral vision, something that didn't want to be seen head on. Then, all of a sudden, there she was, standing in the clearing, white face, black markings on her back, long pink tongue lolling from one corner of the mouth. That's her! That's Jessie! Travis said. The ghost dog! Jack's skin prickled. Was it possible? The dog stared at him, looking as real and solid as any dog he'd ever seen. And then he figured it out. This was Travis's idea of a joke. He wanted Jack to go screaming out of the woods, scared to death, so that whenever school started, he could tell everybody what a sissy Jack was, afraid of ghosts. Well, that was not going to happen. Just looks like a regular old dog to me, Jack said, standing up. Sit down, you idiot, Travis whispered. She wasn't that friendly even when she was alive. Being run over probably didn't make it any nicer. That dog's no more a ghost than I am, Jack said. He left Travis's side and began to walk confidently into the clearing, where the dog stood, glaring at him. You don't know a darn thing about ghosts, Travis called after him. Jessie'll take your leg off. And in fact, Jessie, or whoever's dog it was, bared her teeth as Jack approached. He could hear a low growl begin in the animal's throat and work its way up. Jack knew it probably wasn't the smartest thing to approach a strange dog in the woods, ghost or not. The mutt didn't look too happy to see him. Still, he couldn't let Travis make a fool of him. He put a hand out tentatively. The dog took a step back, and rolled up her lips so her teeth showed. "Hey, doggy," Jack said. "Are you a ghost? You don't look like you got run over by a—" But before he could finish his sentence, the dog leaped out for him, and not for his leg either, for his throat. Without thinking, Jack tried to block the dog with his arm, and felt the furious animal's teeth sink through the flesh of his shoulder. The sudden pain would have dropped him into his knees in any other situation, but fear kept him on his feet. He tried his best to pull away, but the dog held tight. "Jesse, let him go!" Travis ran at the dog, waving his arms. "Back off, Jesse! Go away!" To Jack's surprise, Jesse let go. Travis stomped his feet at her, and the dog backed away, licking her lips, then turned and ran off into the woods. "I told you not to go after her," Travis said. "What did you think she'd do, roll over and give you a kiss?" Jack cradled his bitten arm with his good arm and staggered back out to the road. Travis followed him. "That was no ghost dog, Travis. That was a living, breathing, crazy animal." Travis rolled his eyes. "And how do you know that?" "Because ghosts don't have teeth. Ghosts don't bite you and make you bleed." "You're not bleeding," Travis said matter-of-factly. "Your shirt isn't even ripped." "What?" Jack stopped walking and looked down at his arm. Sure enough, there was no trace of a dog bite, not even a scratch. I felt her bite me," Jack said. "It hurt." But oddly enough, his arm didn't seem to hurt anymore. The pain had disappeared with the dog. Travis shrugged, then smiled. "You look like you saw a ghost." When Jack's mother got home from work, she found him sitting on the couch, staring out the window. "You've got the funniest look on your face," she said. "What are you thinking about?" He decided to come right out and ask her, "Do you believe in ghosts?" She flopped down onto the couch next to him. "Like Halloween ghosts?" "No, like dead people who aren't totally dead, or maybe even dead dogs that you can still see." She sighed and shook her head. "Oh, Jack, it's living so far out in the sticks that's made you think about ghosts, isn't it? Spending the whole day here alone. You're scaring yourself with this silly stuff." "Maybe it isn't silly. You know that old guy, Hawkins, who lives down the road?" "Mr. Hawkins?" Jack. You know better than to call an elderly man by his last name." "Mr. Hawkins. He had this dog that he ran over with his truck, and the dog died. But I saw it today in the woods." "What do you mean you saw it?" "Travis saw it at first and called me over, but I saw it too." She chuckled. "I think this Travis friend of yours has a vivid imagination. You have more sense than to believe something like that, Jack." "Mom, listen to me. The dog bit me. Here, on my arm." Jack's mother grabbed his arm. "A dog bit you? You should have called me right away. You need to get a tetanus shot." She turned his arm over in her hand. "Where did the dog bite you? I don't see anything." "It went away. At first it hurt like anything, and then it just disappeared." "Oh, for Pete's sake." She let his arm drop back to his side. "If you're trying to scare me, it won't work. I grew up around here, and I've heard every dumb story these local farmers can make up. Ghost dogs. That's a good one. Go wash your hands and help me make dinner." On the one hand, Jack was glad to hear his mother say it couldn't possibly have happened, that he'd somehow made it all up. On the other hand, he knew he'd seen that dog and felt that bite. The following morning, Travis was waiting for him on the road in front of his house. "Want to go look for Jesse again?" he said. "No, I'm going to talk with Mr. Hawkins," Jack said. "Why do you want to talk to him?" Travis said. "Old fool don't know if it's midnight or Tuesday. Well, that's where I'm going." Travis looked annoyed. "Fine, while you're listening to him jabber, I'm gonna look for Jesse out back of his place. Whatever." They walked up the road quickly, as if they had jobs to do. When they came inside of Mr. Hawkins' shack, Travis turned into the woods. "I'll call you if I find her." "I don't want to see that dog again, Travis. She bit me, remember?" "Where?" Travis said. "I don't see no bite." He laughed as he disappeared among the trees. Mr. Hawkins was sitting on his front porch as usual. As Jack approached, the old man recognized him, leaning forward in his rocker. He called, "You find my dog? My Jessie?" Jack came to the bottom of the porch stairs. "That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I think I did see her. Mr. Hawkins slapped his knee and grinned. He was short a few teeth. I knew she'd come back. Where was she? In the woods? She always liked to run off in them woods. Jack nodded. Yeah, in the woods. But I wanted to ask you something. I know it sounds weird, but Mr. Hawkins, is that dog alive? The smile wavered on his face as Mr. Hawkins sank back into his chair. What do you mean, is she alive? You saw her, didn't you? You said you saw her. I know, I did see her, but somebody told me that... Jack paused and took a deep breath. How did you ask a person a question like that? Just straight out, he guessed. I heard that you ran over Jessie with your truck, accidentally, and she died. Mr. Hawkins said nothing. His gaze left Jack's face and settled on his own hands where they rested on his chest. Finally, he took a deep breath and shuddered as he let it out. I would never hurt my Jessie girl. I love that old dog. Jack nodded. I know, but can you remember if an accident like that might have happened? Might have, Mr. Hawkins said, his head cocked oddly to the side, his voice low and hoarse. I remember one time I got in my truck and I was real late, supposed to meet my wife in town, not paying attention. He seemed to drift off into his own thoughts. When was that? Jack asked, just to keep the man talking. Mr. Hawkins shrugged and sagged his shoulders. Maybe 15 years ago. My wife, Selma, was still alive. 15 years ago? That couldn't have been when he hit Jessie. Travis had seen the dog alive, and Travis couldn't be more than 12. Suddenly, Mr. Hawkins sat erect, as if he had been struck by lightning. Then, just as quickly, he collapsed back into the chair, his head falling into his hands. Oh, Lordy, why didn't I look behind me? Why didn't I pay attention? God forgive me. Jack felt so sorry for the old man that he walked up onto the porch to put a hand on his arm. It was an accident, Mr. Hawkins. You didn't know the dog was there. Mr. Hawkins looked up at Jack, with tears running down his cheeks. Didn't know neither of them was there. That boy loved Jessie so much, he'd come over and lie down in the dirt with her. Weren't no kids around here. Jessie was his only friend. I ran over them both. The boy and dog. They was dead before the ambulance got here. Lord forgive me. Jack's whole body began to shake. He reminded himself that Mr. Hawkins was a crazy old man who probably didn't know what he was saying. Still, Jack had to ask, What boy, Mr. Hawkins? What was his name? The old man sniffed back his tears and looked at the woods. Name was Travis, lived off of Dakota Road through the woods, but he came here to see Jessie every day. Jack backed away from Mr. Hawkins, stumbling on the top step and almost falling backwards. That's not true. You're trying to trick me. Both of you. From behind him, Jack heard a voice say, Now, why would I want to trick you? When he turned around, there stood Travis, with the black and white dog sitting calmly next to him. Seemed like you didn't have any friends, Travis continued, looking just the same as he had for the last week and a half, smile curling up his mouth. If you want to play with us, I'll tell Jessie not to bite you anymore. Stop it, Jack cried. You can't be dead. You can't. I'm not dead, Mr. Hawkins said. Close to it. Probably, but not dead yet. Not you, him, Jack said, pointing at Travis. He's standing right there, with Jessie. Mr. Hawkins looked where Jack was pointing. Son, I think you've been out in the sun too long. You need a drink of water? The old man stood up slowly from his chair. But Jack had already leaped from the porch stairs to the sidewalk and backed off onto the grass. Go away, Travis. Leave me alone. And then, to Mr. Hawkins' surprise, he turned and ran. Being alone is no fun, Travis yelled after him. When you get lonely, we'll be waiting for you here in the woods. Jack tried not to hear him. He ran fast down Reservoir Road until he came up to his own small house surrounded by woods in the middle of nowhere. Ghost Dog.